We want to talk about the fight that, first of all, started off as a dream fight. It started off as a fantasy warfare fight, and now we've gone through the world tour. The training camps are in full swing. We are going to see the undefeated 49-0 Floyd Mayweather take on the most popular superstar right now in the UFC, Conor McGregor. I'm not saying the top fighter because I'm not going to disrespect Demetrius Johnson, but the definitely the most bankable star right now. So we're going to have this fight. It's obviously boxing rules. What do you guys think of this? Were you guys surprised as the rest of us that it's actually happening, or were you just thinking to yourself, well, listen, Dana White's been making all sorts of crazy things happen through his whole career, so this is just another thing on the list?
You know, and I'd answer that by saying if you look at Floyd Mayweather's first love and Conor McGregor's first love, it's money. So with the...
It's not themselves?
Well, I'd say probably themselves and money second.
Okay.
And with the amount of money they were going to make from this fight, I always had the feeling it was going to happen.
Okay.
Especially when Dana White changed his tune. You know, he went on TV many times saying, I have a better shot at starting the game for Tom Brady in the Super Bowl than this fight happening.
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks later, he's like, yeah, I think the fight's going to happen. Once I saw Dana kind of do that about face, I felt really good for the fight to happen.
Okay.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I did not think it was going to happen. When we first started hearing whispers of this fight, it was just after Conor McGregor knocked out Eddie Alvarez and became the champ.
Yeah.
He immediately started dropping memes on social media, dropping random comments on Twitter talking about how he could take over boxing as well.
Yeah.
Didn't think that it was possible. I didn't think it was anywhere within the realm of possibility for an MMA fighter with no boxing experience to take on arguably the greatest boxer of all time in Floyd Mayweather. Fast forward a few months, things started changing a little bit. New owners in the UFC started taking over, and to the point I just made, money started becoming much more of a priority than it necessarily had been in the past. Not that it wasn't, but it's much more front and center now than it maybe was a few years ago. And there isn't this notion of having to keep MMA pure anymore and not have MMA fighters go and do other things. So the company seems more open to having their stars go in grappling matches and fight in boxing matches in this case, particularly if they can get a cut. So once it was evident that it started coming together, when Dana started making public comments that weren't negative and were somewhat supportive, I started saying, okay, this could actually happen. I didn't really believe it was going to happen until it actually became evident that the fight was imminently going to sign within a couple of days, which was just a little bit before it got announced. So very exciting that it's going to happen. And it's going to be a focus of a lot of debate over the next few months. For sure.
The interesting thing is, so I mean, we've watched a lot of different podcasts. We've watched a lot of different interviews. One of the themes that comes up is here you have a boxer who people can't hit. The top boxers in the world are not able to touch Floyd Money Mayweather. Now you've got a UFC fighter who hits hard, but for him to have effect, he still has to be able to hit him.
Right.
How do you guys see this fight playing out?
So I'd start by saying I think if Floyd Mayweather was in his prime right now, this would be a different story. I have a great amount of respect for him. I think he's an incredible boxer, but I think his age and how he's coming into this fight is actually the story about the fight. So turning 41 this year, not having fought in 2 years, coming back, like you said, versus a very heavy striker in Conor McGregor, I think that really is the storyline. How does he come back? How does he look? He only has a specific amount of time to do it. I think the cardio for boxing is different. You don't see Floyd Mayweather ever tire too much, and I think in those first 4 rounds, if you look at his fights, he's downloading the data of his opponent. He tends to lose some of those first rounds because he's simply playing defense and figuring out how you move, how you strike, what your timing is, what your distance is, what your footwork is. I think if Conor can somehow figure that out in the first 4 rounds and hit him and hurt him and follow up, he has a shot. I think when you start looking at 5, 6, 7 rounds up to 12, that's when the technical boxers really take over. And I think there's no one better than Floyd. So, you know, again, if it's in that first 4 rounds, I'm hoping and praying Conor can land a shot and do something for all us UFC fans. If it goes further than that, I just don't see it happening.
Okay.
Pretty good analysis. I think, Keith, you hit the nail on the head as well. Like, a lot of the best boxers in the world haven't been able to touch Floyd Mayweather. He's recently fought guys like Canelo Alvarez, who I would argue is one of the biggest power punchers in boxing. albeit a traditional stance fighter, not a southpaw.
Yeah.
He wasn't able to get anywhere close to hitting Floyd. If you want to talk about southpaws, Manny Pacquiao, probably one of the best southpaw fighters of this generation, wasn't able to touch Floyd, unfortunately. So is it logical for us to think Conor, who I don't think would win a boxing match with either one of those guys, is going to be able to break through the guard of Floyd, be able to corner him? Don't know. I don't think it's necessarily likely. I think that's why we're all going to watch, though, is to figure out, can he walk through a few shots?
Yeah.
Can he take advantage of maybe a Mayweather that's a little bit slower than the one that fought Andre Berto about 2 years ago?
Right.
So I think that's what's still intriguing about this, and the idea that Conor is 13 years younger than Floyd. That's actually a pretty big gap in age at the end of the day.
Especially in sports.
Especially in sports. So
Yeah.
to James's point, has he slowed down sufficiently that Conor will be able to catch up to him? And then to Conor's point, can he break through the guard?
Right.
He says his shots will break through that guard.
Yeah.
And he's got a straight left that travels right down the pipe. That's not a looping left. So
Yeah.
there's a chance he might be able to corner him, walk through a few shots, and break down that guard. It's only going to take one if he can find it, but guys like Canelo and Manny Pacquiao weren't able to find it. So is it logical that we think that Conor would? I don't know.
And it's interesting because when I go back to that Pacquiao fight, I've watched UFC fights like the Conor McGregor Jose Aldo, which ended in 13 seconds. I felt I got more of my money's worth than watching Pacquiao and Mayweather, because you had two guys dancing around respectfully for in my opinion, for 12 rounds. McGregor's not going to allow that. McGregor's going to hunt him down. So I don't think that's going to be a huge issue in that regard. The question is, though, is that can we even look at McGregor as a potential loser, in the sense of, I think all the pressure is on Mayweather. So if McGregor loses, in my opinion, it's I was boxing for the first time ever, and I lost, but I'm still probably walking away with close to 9 figures, if not more.
Right.
Whereas if Mayweather loses, then he becomes 49-1, and his legacy is completely tarnished by this guy in his first ever fight. And if he wins, is it really a big deal, because you beat a guy who never boxed before?
Yeah, it almost seems like he's put himself in a lose-lose scenario, because like you said, if he wins, everyone's going to say you should have. I think that probably the most interesting story going into the fight is the IRS and being after him, and what is his actual net worth, and if he was in a good spot like he says he is, would he be taking this fight? And I think the answer to that is no. I think there's more issues than we probably think. And I think Conor, from a Conor perspective, when you look at him, he thinks he can win the fight. His team thinks he can win the fight. It's oddly similar to the Jose Aldo World Tours they did. Like when they get questioned, they have this true belief that Conor knows he can win and that he will win. And I think that's really dangerous, especially when you're fighting an older fighter.
Yeah. I think the one disappointing thing in terms of, they already have their set amount of money. I wish it was similar to UFC, where you have your amount, but then you get more if you win. You get more if there's a knockout. So there's some sort of incentive, because I want to see a really good competitive fight. Do we see, win or lose, do we see Conor McGregor step foot in the octagon again? Because it's kind of hard to go from I'm assuming close to 100 with pay-per-view buys and everything, and then come back to 3.
Yeah,
right.
That's what I've been thinking the whole time. And he says that he will come back to fight. He's even said things like, I want to fight Khabib in Russia, which would be fantastic. But to your point, it's hard to believe that he'll make a cut of $100 million, whatever that might be, between him and the UFC, and then come back and fight for $5 million or $10 million, whatever the case might be. I just always draw the correlation to, if we made $10 an hour, would we then go and work for $1 an hour after we made 10? Like, it doesn't make sense.
No, for sure.
Although maybe on that scale it does make sense. And he's a young guy still, so he sees this as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But I also think he's going to then parlay this into other things. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen after the fight, and I think a lot has to do with what happens in the fight.
Yes, I would agree. I think if you see him win, it's not out of the question you'd see him in the boxing ring again, right? I think if you see him lose, that's when you'll probably see him come back to the UFC, and the question will be, how many crossover fans did you get from boxing? So you've been in front of the world now, and you're into the boxing game, people that like combat sports. How many people now extra will buy your pay-per-view in the UFC? I think that will be the big kind of determining factor for him. But I honestly don't see Conor trying to fight Habib. I think he'll come back if he does and try for a Nate Diaz trilogy. I think that's the money fight, if you will, for
Or
him.
GSP, if GSP is successful in winning the title.
Or George, right? That could
Yeah.
that could be excellent and really exciting.
Yeah.
We'll definitely have to blog about that if it happens.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm extremely excited for this. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to discuss this with me. Any last words?
I think I'm going to have to put my money on Floyd if I'm a betting man.
Yeah.
Although my heart is definitely with Conor McGregor.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to have to go with Conor McGregor. I just, at this point, like Dana always says, I have a hard time doubting the man. I think he'll somehow find a way to get it done in that first 4 rounds, and hopefully it'll be great.
You know what? The common sense part of me is with Floyd. But when you think about to the points, you know, the age, and you think about I've always said in life, when you're dealing with somebody who has nothing to lose, that is the most dangerous person to deal with. That person is Conor McGregor because he has nothing to lose in this.
Absolutely.
So I'm thinking he might pull it out. So we'll see.
Awesome.
Maybe we're right, maybe we're not. We'll check it out. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. We really appreciate it. As always, you can reach out to me on Twitter at CFL_fan. Leave your comments. We would love to hear what you guys think. And until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.